Thank you so much for coming. My name is Moderator, and I'm working here at Idea Innovation. And today we are going to have these wonderful guests along. And before I introduce the guests, I really want to tell you about the GASS project. It is a project to help and make available for the masses, actually, about game studios in the southern part of Sweden. And the entire name of the project is not just GASS, it is Game Accelerate South Sweden, which means we try to do this together with MINC, BTH, BBI, Game Habitat, and of course, Idea and Innovation. And to continue this discussion, I want to introduce my guests. And of course, I have guests here in the studio, and I also have guests online. And we have Sarah, please. Can you introduce yourself a little bit?
Yes, I'm very happy to be here today. So my name is Sarah, and I work as a feature producer at Sharkmob, who is based in Malmö. That's me.
Thank you. Marcus?
Yes, my name is Marcus Dawson. I'm currently at a studio called Tuxedo Labs, which makes a game called Teardown. But I previously was at Illusion Lab Studio. I was running that studio for the last 7 years.
Okay. And we have Eric.
Yeah, I'm Eric Rodelius, HR manager at Tarsier Studios since 3 years back. Really excited to be here and talk about this topic today.
Welcome. And of course, we're sorry you can't be here in person, but I probably think that you are happy where you're at.
Yep, for sure.
And for those who don't know, he's not in the country at all. So he's in the US, just hanging about and having a great time with his family. So that's why he's just joining us for this short meeting. Okay. The studio you are in now, Marcus, can you tell us a little bit about it? How many people are there in it?
We are currently 5 people, and so we are doing a game called Teardown, and it's been out on early access on Steam for over a year, and we are working hard to get the 1.0 release out. It's a very technical studio, so we build everything from scratch, so we don't use commercial tools like Unity or anything else. It's heavily a technical studio.
Oh, thank you. Sarah, how many employees does Sharkmob have?
So we grown quite a lot for the past at least 2-3 years. And we recently opened a studio in London as well. So we have a couple of people sitting in London. And I think we are over 300, around 300 right now.
Wow.
And I think we have so far at least talked about 2 of our projects. If you read the jobs page, you can see there are 2 projects recruiting right now. So there's a lot of exciting stuff happening right now.
Okay, thank you. And Eric, Tarsier Studio, how many of you?
We are around 70 people. We are pretty happy with our size. It's kind of nice to be a studio where you know everybody's names. So we don't have any intention of growing for the sake of growing. So we'll see a little bit what coming games will take us, but we aim to be around where we are. So maybe hire a little bit more people to improve what we do.
Cool. And thank you guys for setting the stage. And to give a little bit of background on the subject today, I pulled some numbers from the latest Game Developer Index, and to have some kind of idea of how many people are actually working in the industry. I found these numbers. So 2016, there were roughly 3,700 people in Sweden employed in the game industry. And 17% of those were females. 2020, that number had increased until 6,600 and 21% females. So as you can hear, it's quite of a up and rising industry. And of course, we know that a lot of people are employed here in Skåne, and we are looking forward to making it even more. So, and also, of course, as you grow fast, there are also some troubles and maybe some ideas on how to do the business better. We also talked about a little bit, and that's where we are here today. How can we make the business inclusive, and how can we make it so everyone feels welcome to be in the industry? Okay, so I have some questions, of course, and you are welcome to put questions in the chat during the talk, and we'll come to them later. Just so you know, please ask questions if you have them. We're really looking forward to them. Okay, so the first question is for Sarah, actually. What do you consider to be the largest obstacle for women or non-binary to join in a gaming studio?
I think it's a really good question, and I had to think about it quite a lot. And I think one of the challenges, and I think this is probably true for any industry where you are in a minority, right? Is that it's very hard to get the benefit of the doubt. That a lot of the times you have to prove yourself beyond maybe what somebody would have to prove themselves if they are more part of what's being the norm in that industry. So speaking to some of my former classmates from when I went to game dev university, like 15 years ago, some of them went on to enter the games industry, and some of those coders, they told me that they have to be almost twice as good when they write code to be considered as good as some of their male colleagues in the eyes of the group. And of course, we try our best to be inclusive at Sharpmo, but I'm like, throughout the years, of course, like I'm picking up some of these stories, and as I talk to my friends and my colleagues in the industry. But I think that's one thing, like you always have to prove yourself a little bit more because you might not be given the benefit of the doubt.
And that's quite a tough one. And as you say, it's kind of almost the same, I think, in most of the industries.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is tough. That is really tough. And I don't know how to change it, but no, we're here. So, and I have a question from Marcus as well. What kind of strategy have you used to get people into the studio? And then I know that you just started a new one, but last one.
Yeah. So, well, I think it's. I haven't used like any standards or any like written methods in recruiting. I'm a bit old-fashioned on that, and I think that the best way to understand someone you're recruiting is to talk to them about the subject. You will see if they understand it on the deepest level that they need for the recruitment, or if they don't. I mean, to get to know the person and really talk to them instead of like brushing off them instantly. And I think that's often the best way.
So you made more like kind of tryouts or not?
Well, the difficulty is that since it's a popular industry, you don't get like 100 applicants you have to sort out, and you have to pick them yourself.
Can hunt a little bit.
Yeah, and we've been working a lot with schools and try to interview the students and things like that. It's best to like get personal connection, talk to people from how they are and what they know.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. And Eric, are you using some kind of tools or something for making an unbiased recruitment?
We've started a new project with that, implementing a new recruitment system for us, where we basically work with Teamtailor as ATS applicant tracking system, where it's possible to de-identify applicants as well. So that is something we will look into in the future to see what we can do, since research shows that companies are more likely to hire minority candidates if we don't see their names or can identify their background. So that will be an interesting thing to try at least. In connection with this, we also use a system from Alva Labs, which is a testing system with a logic test and a personality test. And before setting that personality test, we have worked with Wise Professional about finding out like how do we investigate and come up with a good profile that we put into the system, so we actually know what we're measuring against. And this is all to try and remove all the biases we have as interviewers, because we all do have that. And in an industry, I think you said 17% women, we are even worse at RCA with only 15% women. So then it's most likely men who will interview in the end. And yeah, we have different experience than women definitely in this industry. So we just need to remove as many biases as we can, is what I think. So those systems are hopefully there to help us in the future. So we're trying them out right now, and we'll improve on them, I hope, in the coming years.
That sounds really, really interesting. And I think that would be a good topic to actually pick up kind of in a year or something, actually, to hear, has something changed? Have you gotten more people from another background or not?
Mm.
Just to see what is the difference?
And then a big problem for us in the industry is obviously that the number of people we can choose from is a little bit limited, and already there you have issues with too many minority groups as applicants from the start. So that is something I think is even more important for the industry to work with and make sure we get a more diverse base to recruit from.
That's so true. That is so true. We have actually, I was going to talk about leveling the playing field. Do you guys know about that? A little bit, yeah, not all. So it's a funding initiative from Coffee Stain, and it's focusing on smaller studios that employ at least the same number of women as men to promote equality in game development. What do you feel? Is it a good idea to do this, or is it counterproductive? I don't know. I'm asking you, and it's kind of like a free question. So anyone who feel like they want to answer?
I don't have a response. I don't know the good one. I think because I think it's good trying, but I think that's not the issue. I think at least not from my perspective, because in my current and my previous studio has been very technical, and it's what you can pick from. When I was studying millions of years ago, I did the engineering program, and we had very few women in the course. And as I like deep dive deep dive into more technical, they become less and less because they often went to project management or things like that. And so, I mean, the big problem is that we don't have women and non-binary people in like the most of the tech. And I think that's something that needs to change. We need to have more people from diverse backgrounds on the education, because if we try to, we still need to hire the best. And I mean, women and men are, I would say, equally good at, but since 9 of 10 are men educated in this, it's very few to get. So I think the most important part is like keep a culture and bring out role models so we can get more women interested in the industry and educate themselves towards that perspective.
That's true. That's true.
I would say at Sharpmob, we've been participating in different kinds of efforts to try to get the word out there, as well as that the games industry is a path you could choose for your career. I think recently we sponsored and we also sent speakers to Data Tjej, which is an event that gathers female and non-binary coders, as an example, just to show them that this is also actually a career. Because some people, they might come from a very tech-heavy background and they don't think about, okay, I could also apply my coding skills in the games industry. Sometimes there is still, this preconceived idea that it's only teenage guys that are playing games. And I mean, it is 20% female in the industry, and people that are outside of the games industry tend to forget that that's actually 20%. They think there's none. So we're trying to participate in these kinds of events. And also, speaking of leveling the playing field, I'm happy that there is such an initiative, because studies have shown time and time again that if you look at the venture capital that gets granted or gets put into companies that are recently starting up or trying to found a new project, like if you have a female CEO or a woman doing the presentation for those venture capitalists, is way less of a chance that you get the money, unfortunately. Having an indie studio myself called Midnight Hub, like this is something I'm very passionate about. So I think it's great that there are these kinds of different initiatives, but I totally agree with you. Like it has to start way before that, and I think like there is, like if you look at the studies being made around this topic, there is also numbers showing that women kind of fall out from science and tech-heavy education. I think it's around like when you become a teenage girl, then for some reason like you tend to gravitate away from that. So in the end, that also leads to fewer women taking an interest in programming, as an example. We had very few women in the programming course when I went to university to study video games. So I think it starts even like way before that. It starts way before the game dev schools. Yeah.
We have a question as well from the Maya. How do these companies go about advertising roles that don't need more technical skills, programming, coding, etc., to get more women and non-binary people involved in the gaming industry? And she's asking, or they are asking, based on knowledge of push for non-tech roles in tech companies in the US.
So I'm not really sure I understand the question 100%. It's about programming and coding roles, but also asking about non-tech roles.
I think this is because I heard about this. So I think at least I know what it is. It is studies have shown that even if you say you have females in our studio, they are usually management roles or admin roles. And I'm saying this broad strokes, okay? But that's what they have actually seen. And that is kind of a problem, like you said, the deep tech, where are females there? Are they or they can shove it to the side, or what is actually happening. We really don't know this at the moment, but that is, I think that was what Demaya was asking about. Have you seen that maybe? I don't know. Have you thought about that in your studios?
Yeah, I think one thing that we have done is that like we've been trying to look at what is the language and the words that we're using when we're writing the job ads for Sharpmode, because I think there's been like some really interesting studies around that, like how you word your job ads also attract different people, and women tend to not really apply for jobs where there's like 20 checkboxes that you have to meet, while men usually, if they feel like they maybe check 15 or 10, yeah, then they apply. But women wait until they apply to until they can check all of those boxes before applying. So we really try to see like what's needed and what's nice to have when you apply for a certain role at Sharpmode. But I think generally speaking, we have around 20% female and non-binary at Sharpmode. So of course we could be better, and like we want to find the best talent.
The thing, I've seen this quite a lot. I went to a meeting in the games industry, and I had the yes meeting, and then I forgotten what it was about. And when I came there, I didn't know if I was at the correct place, because it was like 20 women and 1 man. This doesn't look like the games industry. It turned out it was the HR department. So I think a lot of the games industry compensates because they can't find like women people to recruit in roles, and then they compensate. Well, at least we have women now. We can have them in HR or economics or other parts. And I think I think there is an overrepresentation in women in some areas of the games industry, because you're compensating just to get these numbers up, so we can say which percentage we have. So, but yeah, it's good that we can get more people in, but it would be great to have them create process as well.
I think with all these things, representation matters. So even when it comes to these kind of leveling the playing field initiatives, that if you can show there are women in the industry, if you can, even if it's in an HR position or a finance position, if they are there, it increases the chance of other women to applying to that studio. So even if it's a little bit compensating or whatever it might be, I think it's pretty even. Like it looks the same in all industries. I think with HR is probably a little bit female overrepresentation, but yeah, I don't see it as a problem in any kind of way. That if it's a little bit overrepresented in certain areas, that's not a disadvantage in any kind of way. What else was I gonna say? That yeah, like these people also like helps create a more diverse workplace in the end. So it's just a good thing, I would say. That it's important to show that there is a career for everyone in the games industry.
And I think one thing that I would like to highlight on this topic is that the thing that we can affect everyone here in the games industry is the culture. Because if we can keep out, so we don't become the mechanics where they have like nude pictures on the wall and like and keep away that bad culture that we have seen in some American studios and things like that. It's very important to keep an open culture where everyone feels welcome, because if we keep the culture clean, we can get more diverse people in. But if we can't keep the culture clean, then it will still majority males.
I think
It's always important to address. And I think Eric will agree with me on this one because as an HR person, that is one of the things that you kind of are encompassing all the time, I guess.
sorry, I didn't get the question there.
No, I'm just saying that as you are in the HR department, you know about toxic work culture and how it can affect the company badly. And of course,
Yeah.
like Marcus said, if you have a bad or toxic work culture, no one really wants to work there anyway. So.
No, and that is the more important thing to me. To like as a company, we need to create a very inclusive atmosphere at the studio. Regardless, when we write in job ads how we hire and so on, we might do that better as well. But if we do like hire in a very diverse front and end up with a diverse group of people, it doesn't necessarily say that we are an inclusive place. And then in the end, people will leave. Like if you look at also, I think that is the same for most studios where it's basically run by men. It's men in directors and senior positions all over the place, and we just need to get more diversity into those groups of people. So we can, and also important to show that the role models we have that are from more minority groups. And and reaches those levels, they need to work, like Sarah said, be twice as good, work twice as hard. So those are really strong talents to me in a very male-dominated industry.
And like to touch upon that more, I think like if you have to prove yourself and like to ever given the benefit of the doubt, then of course like that's going to be exhausting after a while. If you do that for 5 years, 10 years, and then maybe you're juggling that with becoming a parent as well, and it's still like the norm, even though it's getting better in Sweden, that the mom is a lot of the time the one that like in the beginning of the child's life maybe bumps a little bit more, or you know, the whole childbearing thing as well. So like that becomes pretty like taxating after a while. And I definitely know really skilled game developers who said like after maybe 5 or 10 years that it's not really worth it anymore. So you go into maybe graphic design or you code web pages for a marketing studio or something else instead, which is unfortunate because then we lose all of like that talent and the seniority that they've been building. And I'm not really sure how to address that. And I saw a couple of years ago that the average career in game development, at least in Norway, it's one of our closest countries, it was like 4 years. So after 4 years, you move to another career instead. So there is like a pretty big falling out, like people are leaving for other industries. So sometimes it is a tough industry.
That's quite interesting as well. Does anyone have any ideas on why that happens? Because that sounds actually really bad. Because, like you said, you lose all this talent and all this structural capital. I mean, that is really bad.
I think it's still a young business. Heard people say that, oh, I can go grow up and get a real job, but it's changing quite a lot. I mean, there's a big industry now, and I know people that want to go into games from other jobs as well. So, and we've actually recruited a few people from other industries in. So I think it's important that people in the game industry realize this, that like one of the most talented graphics artists in game had a career in advertising before, and also tech people coming into tech. So it's the base knowledge. It's not that you need to know games. First thing, a recruiter can say, "Oh, I love playing games. I play games all the time." It doesn't say that they are good at creating games. And I think it's the interest, the tech about creating games more than playing games.
Of course.
And speaking of that, so I posted a question on my, and I asked because I have like a lot of game developers following me on Twitter, and I was asking like game developers out there, would you consider yourself a gamer? Yes or no? And I think in the end, like a bit like around 900 people answered, and it was a close call. Half would not consider themselves a gamer, and half would say they are gamers. And of course, I can't verify it was only game developers who answered this poll that I was putting out there. But I think that also says a little bit about like, how do you view yourself? Like, I think a lot of people in the games industry, they might not necessarily view themselves as gamers because we have this idea that the gamer needs to be in a certain way. But if you're like me and you've been playing Pokemon Go and running out like 2 o'clock in the middle of the night to like catch a Lapras, like I wouldn't call myself a gamer, but I still behave in a way that if I changed the name Pokemon Go for maybe Call of Duty or something else, then I would be a gamer. And I think that's really important when you write your job ads as well, or when you want to attract talent. Like, do you want everybody to apply to a studio to be thinking of themselves as a gamer, or are you also reaching beyond the game dev industry to find talent? And I think that's actually important if we want to diversify, to also bring in people from nearby industries and not only maybe focus on the people that would call themselves gamers.
I think that's a very good distinction. And like you said, that's one thing you actually would have to think about when you're doing the job interviews. And, you know, what is important? The important is not that they're a gamer. Important is that they can actually do the job.
Yeah, and I think for certain roles, there is a very big value if you are playing a lot of games. Like, let's say you're gonna work with QA. Like, I think that person playing a lot of games is certainly gonna bring a lot of good stuff into like that position. But is it necessary for somebody like myself that works as a producer? Do I have to be a hardcore gamer to do a good job? I don't know, but it would be weird to shut the door into somebody's face if they're a skilled project manager with an interest for games, but they're not calling themselves a gamer.
I think in first years of Illusion Labs, we didn't have any gamers in non-positions because we had good coders, but they weren't gamers, and good artists, and they weren't game designers. So I think it's definitely, it doesn't need to consume games to create them.
And like you said about what do you consider a game? Is it how many hours you put into it? Then I'm definitely a gamer. But but no, I never played Call of Duty, World of Warcraft. No, like I said, mobile things, Pokemon Go, Harry Potter, Wizarding World, whatever, all these kinds of stuff. But yes, I would never say I was a gamer, but I put so many hours into it. And that's one of those things. What is the distinction?
I've been at a mobile studio for several years, and I've been struggling with this because mobile gamers are not real gamers. A lot of people, we definitely made games. Yeah.
And I mean, that's a huge industry, so you can't really say it's not an industry. I mean, it's a lot of people play those games, and a lot of money goes into that. So that is. Questions. So now art about how to keep females and non-binary persons. I want to slightly pivot and talk about how to attract and keep people from diverse backgrounds, international talents. Have you guys had any change or challenges recruiting and keeping them?
Yeah, So I think at Sharp Mod there's around like 42 or 4 different nationalities. So obviously there's a lot of different backgrounds and different languages, and we all try to speak English so that everybody can join and feel welcome when we're in the office. And I think one of the challenges if you are recruiting from outside of Sweden, and it's even clearer if you're recruiting from outside of the European Union, is that I mean Malmö is is not that well known abroad, so you have to do a little bit extra to sell Malmö as the place where somebody will take a chance and move. Not only themselves, but if you're looking at senior talent, then it might be the question that they're going to ask their partner to quit their job, and maybe they have kids in a school. So taking a chance and moving to like this small country, Sweden up north, and then Malmö, which is like the third biggest city in Sweden, sometimes it's a little bit of a hard sell, and you have to also like talk about how Sweden as a society is set up, because like we pay taxes so that you can go to university without paying extra, and you know the healthcare is very available, I would say, and childcare, like it's not crazy expensive in Sweden. So you have to sometimes like educate people a little bit of like these are the benefits of moving to Sweden. And then Malmö, like forget about your 2-hour car ride, like you can actually bike to work a lot of the times. So you can sell some of that stuff to international talent. Like quality of life is, I think, very different in Malmö than if, you know, when we're speaking to somebody maybe in San Francisco that has to commute 2 hours every day by car. Yeah, that's something that we sometimes meet, you know, when talking to international talents.
I need to tell this story. It's my previous studio didn't have any people from abroad, but we had a recruitment, and we had a lot of people, and we interviewed, and one final guy got the position. This guy had been studying 3 years for job in the games industry. That was his dream, and then he didn't get a job for 2 years, and he moved out back home somewhere in Sweden, and he got this job that he applied. So congratulations! Now you just need to move to Malmö, and then I didn't hear from him anymore. So he realized he had to get an apartment in Malmö, and it was a bit scary. So even that, on a national point of view, was like difficult for him. So he skipped the job and to recruit someone else. And as a small studio, we try to help people to accommodate, and I think that's a big struggle, especially for a small studio. I've been reaching out to bigger studios for help. So I got a list of where you can rent apartments and things like that. But it's a challenge, especially for small studios.
Yeah, I understand that. And of course, there are relocation companies you can help you money, and it is like I said, it can be a tough sell.
Yeah, I think there are two bigger obstacles right now as well. One is to get the personnummer. It's pretty backed up, so it can take months and months to get one. And if you don't have your personnummer in Sweden, you are nothing. You can't even reach out to find an apartment, get a bank account, or anything. It's really hard. And also how a lot of authorities only communicates in Swedish. You get letters in Swedish even if you don't speak a word Swedish. Even when you go to Svenska Swedish for Immigrants to their local office in Malmö, it only is in Swedish. Like when it's on that level, yeah. Those two things are difficult when coming there, so it's really important to as an employer to try and help out and that make that introduction to Swedish society, and like Sarah said as well, like sell Malmö to some extent and explain how the Swedish system works with taxes and benefits and break everything down, and even how different it is with how we pay pension compared to other countries as well. Like you need to break down every krona in your offer to a person from abroad, so they understand it as good as possible.
We currently have in my studio, we have an employee in UK, and that's the benefit we have for being a hybrid studio. Or currently we're a non-office studio, but being a hybrid studio, then you have like the possibility that you don't need to sell Malmö. You can still have people abroad working for you.
Mm.
It's more like how you employ someone from abroad, and taxes and things like that are tricky, but that's one of the benefits of not being forcing everyone to be in the same place.
Yeah. And of course, a bit that person you tried to hire at the last studio probably could have had this job now, but that's one of those things. Now we know, because we've been doing it for 2 years. Everyone's been working more or less on distance. So that is actually one of those things that we can actually have, like, if there's something that's good with the pandemic, is that you can actually attract talent from somewhere else and have them actually working with you. It's a lot easier. And of course, not everything can go via that, but you can also have a lot of good people in it. So that is really great. What would you say, Sarah, has been the largest hurdle actually having them sign on?
So yeah, I think I have to look back a little bit to the thing I was saying earlier, that like you really have to sell Malmö. And it's easier, like if you, I used to work up in Stockholm, and it's easier if you work in Stockholm, because then at least it's the capital of Sweden. But Malmö, it's a little bit on the outskirts if you're coming from another country. So it really is about selling Malmö and selling all the benefits that comes of the way of how people live their life in Malmö. But at Sharp Mode, we are using a relocation agent, or like a firm that's helping us to relocate international talent. And also we have some, like we are helping with, like, if you need to ship your stuff and that kind of things as well. So we're trying to iron out all those like logistical bumps in the road that could be preventing somebody from taking the step to joining our studio. And now we also have the London studio. So like in some places, some instances, we're hiring people to the London studio, like London, that's everybody knows about London, right? Yeah.
And then, also that is a big problem to get somewhere to live, unless you already live there. But I guess that is also...
At least in Malmö, that's something that the relocation company is helping us with, to like find houses or apartments, because sometimes not all of them are available on the places where anybody could check, like Blocket or MKB, like, so that helps us. But I understand that it's something that bigger studios can have an access to, but it might be more challenging if you're a small or a medium-sized studio to put money on like this kind of agency that helps you to relocate.
I think one thing for the games industry in Malmö, at least, is that you have the Nordic Gaming Conference in Malmö. So a lot of people in the games industry have visited Malmö, have seen it for themselves sometimes. Perhaps not everyone, but there's still a possibility that you can see what it's like. I've had a lot of external business people come to Malmö and, oh, what am I sitting? And really realizing that it's something that's, something good.
I was actually speaking to, and this is a couple of years ago, I was working with a German guy, and we spoke about like relocating because I'm not born in Sweden. So once upon a time also I relocated to Sweden, and we were speaking about what made you decide to take the leap of faith and move from a country where you have like your friends and family and security nets and all of that. And he said like he was being brought in for this interview, and this is a lot of years ago. He was on the interview in Malmö, and then before he was gonna like take the train to Kastrup, he had some time to walk around in Malmö, a couple of hours, and he was like, wow, there are so many playgrounds in Sweden. And he had kids back in Germany, and he was like, I want my kids to grow up in a place where like there's so many playgrounds and they are so like well kept, easily accessible. And I think he's been walking around the Slottsparken probably. There's like this fantastic playground in Slottsparken. But I mean, the small details like that sometimes, you know, that helps people make the decision.
And that's important, like you said, to have to be able to take your family with you and not have to do it on your own. Also, of course, very important.
And that can also be a big obstacle because especially if you look at senior people that's been in the industry for like maybe 10 years, chances are you kind of reach that age where you're creating a family and your partner also has a career someplace else. To move like as a family, it is challenging. And there's also like some numbers showing that if the partner doesn't find a job like within 1-2 years, then the chances are very high that the family packs up all of their stuff and they move back to Canada or Brazil, or because like it's not a sustainable situation for one of the parents who don't have a job, because Sweden is pretty much built upon the fact that both parents have an income.
Yeah.
And there you have an issue as well, where if you come from a non-EU country, you're not part of the Swedish social security system until you worked here for at least 6 months, basically. So if you haven't worked, then you're not part of anything, and you can only live on one income, which is really hard in Sweden.
And I think it's the thing we touched upon in the beginning, getting it's horrible, but I think in a lot of places in the world it's not so equal. So getting a woman to get her husband and kids to move to other is perhaps more difficult than get a man to get his wife, which is sad, but I think that's the case also.
That might be true as well. I think feels like something that might be true. We have a question. Do any of you perceive the genre theme of the gaming or the game being developed having an influence on the demographics of the development company? It's a two-part question, but
well, I don't know if it's answers the question or it's just me talking, but I've always thought that games are best made when the creative team is more diverse, because you get more angles and you get a fuller experience. The genre as such, I've never created a game where they have gun, so I don't know. Perhaps there's more like genres that influence. So if games played by women are perhaps more women who create those kind of games. I don't know, but perhaps, I mean, I wouldn't want to do a game where you just create guns all the time. But I think there's some kind of correlation between what kind of games and what people work on creating those games.
I don't know. I think it's one of those hard questions, I guess. What do you think, Eric? Have you any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I just think that games are made by people, and people have their experience and knowledge, and they will bring that to the table. And if you have a different demographic in one studio, you will probably make a little bit different games there than another studio where you have another kind of demographic. At least if you're actually wanting people to contribute and don't micromanage them too much.
And everybody wants to do the games they want to play themselves.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to do that. But, so I think you seek yourself towards studios that create games that might not be true. Yeah, maybe.
Maybe,
I'm
yeah.
just thinking.
And of course, I don't think maybe we might not have an answer for you guys. Who I guess this was asking, we might not have an answer for you. It is one of those questions we really don't know, I think. We have theories, but
I think it's important that we create diversified game titles and themes. So not all games are like shoot people in the head, and so you have more diverse kind of gaming kind of games, because that's more interesting as well to see different kind of games coming up, and not be everyone be clone of the same game, because that's horrible in the end.
Yeah, and I think like one interesting perspective of this is also like the business perspective of it, because like let's say that you bring together a group of people who previously shipped a certain kind of game, and like everybody knows that guys and girls are really good at making this kind of game, and they had some success making those kinds of titles. Like if they're starting up a new studio, or if you're starting up a new project, then it is like going to an investor and pitching your idea. It is easier to get the money to make that studio or to make that game if you can draw upon previous successes. So it's also the case sometimes that like if you start making one kind of game and then time flies by and 10 years later you wake up and you realize you made kind of the same kind of games, because that's maybe your portfolio started out with those kinds of assets or concept art, or that was kind of what like where your studio's been known for. Then it's kind of hard to change the path, but it's absolutely possible to do. And I think it's pretty fascinating what you said, that you've been you never made a game that had a gun in it. And I think few people in the Swedish games industry can say that after like 15 years of experience. That's very rare in my opinion. Yeah.
but also I guess that comes down to kind of what you feel comfortable with doing. And of course, like we talked about before, what kind of games do you like to have? What do you want to put out? So
it's not true, by the way. The last game I'm currently working on has guns in it, so it's not true anymore.
What is it? A month?
Yeah, but it's not a shooting game.
Yeah.
But I think it's good if we can make many kinds of games, because like ideally you want as much people as possible to have as much fun as possible with games or the game that you're making. So if you can add something to that draws in more people to your target audience, then I think that's a win. But then of course there's like you have to think about, am I making my game too vague, or like am I making a game that you know what it's all about? Because like a game for everybody is a game for nobody.
Yeah.
Like you have to appeal to your target audience, and that is the same thing when if you speak to like your publisher or an investor. Like if the target audience is not clear, then it's too risky for them to take a bet on you. And that's also like, I mean, you can go indie, which I have done at one occasion, to just like make the thing that you believe in and try to do it really good, and then get people to believe in you along the way and try to deliver.
And I think, I mean, diversifying is so important. Always in games, it ends up with money is close and doing the same thing over and over, because they know that they create money in the end. And if you look at movies, the first Pirates of the Caribbean that sold, and then they knew that the second one will sell, the third one, and you know that by the fourth one it's not that good anymore, But they keep on doing that.
And you're still gonna go and see it.
Yeah.
Better.
Yeah. But it's better to like try to do something else and try to, because then you can make something really magnificent, and it's important not to just focus on the money, but focus on the experience.
And with that, I have to ask the audience, do you have any last questions you want to ask? Because the time is running out. Did we get anything? Else? All right, so I want to thank you again for joining me. And thank you, Eric, for waking up early and joining us. And with that, we say thank you. And
Thank
goodbye.
you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.